Stay informed. COVID vaccinations and
Yeah, it's got more.
booster shots. How does this affect our children? Finances and the cost of living. Race and the fight for equity and equality. What will education look like in the future? What you should know about good health practices. Employment and job interviews in today's world. You need to know. Stay connected. One Voice Lenawee. Access to the information you've been looking for. Sponsored by United Way of Monroe and Lenawee counties.
736 million people struggle to meet their basic needs. An estimated 40 million people have fallen victim to human trafficking. 51 million kids go hungry every day. And every day, United Way and our partners, including Kellogg, Wells Fargo, and UPS, fight for the health, education, and financial stability of every person in every community.
Welcome to One Voice Lenawee. Welcome back to the show. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please take a moment right now, hit that subscribe button that's located right there, and become a part of our viewing audience. Stay up to date with events that are going on and information that we want to bring right to your doorstep. And the show is sponsored by United Way of Monroe and Lenawee County. Again, that's United Way of Monroe and Lenawee County. And if you have any ideas or any suggestions for future topics for the show, please write that in the comment section right now. We would love to hear from you, and everything that you submit is of great importance to us. So again, welcome to One Voice Lenawee. And today we have with us Commissioner Gordon Gauss.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Glad to have you with us today as well.
Glad to be here.
We are talking about Riverview Terrace. I know that many of you are very familiar with what's going on there and the displacement of the residents and the tragedy of having to move out of a place that they resided at for so long, and now dealing with the challenges of where do we go next and what does life look like. And so we have Gordon Gauss, Commissioner Gordon Gauss here with us to have a conversation on what the future of residents in our community that are displaced from Riverview Terrace might look like. So again, thank you. Gordon Gauss, for joining us. And if you wouldn't mind just kind of walking us through the Riverview Terrace situation.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Back on August 25th, we got a call from the management at Riverview Terrace telling us they had discovered some serious structural defects at the building, asked us to come over and look at it. We sent our fire chief and some of his staff there to take a look at it and determined that immediately that the building was unsafe and it needed to be evacuated. That day we evacuated about 175 residents. We relocated them at least as a hub for getting them out and back into the community over to the Piotr Center. They were taken over there about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Everybody had a place to go by 5 p.m. Now, many of the 170 people were able to actually find opportunities to live with family or relatives and even friends. So that helped, but we still had 70 people we had to deal with. They were relocated to area hotels and put in there now. Not a great solution, but we had funding from MISHDA and a few other places, including the landlords, to pay for those stays. But over a period of time, and we had the residents in all those locations through actually September 15th. So that's pretty much what happened in terms of dealing with the immediate problem. That was a humanitarian crisis, quite frankly. It was a situation where I was happy to see the response that we got from the community. We worked with, immediately had activated the Emergency Operations Center. We had support from the Emergency operations chief at the county. Those meetings and groups have been meeting every day since the problem, up until continuing on through today. So, you know, proud of the fact that everybody jumped in and helped out on the situation.
Wow. So in a situation like this where you have a apartment complex that's privately owned, we have residents, over 160 residents that's residing in that property, and this situation takes place and they are displaced from their home. What then becomes the city's responsibility?
You know, I think a number of people have differing opinions on that, but I think the commission and the other commissioners, we all agreed that, you know, these people were displaced through no fault of their own, and they're citizens. They're citizens of our city, and we have an obligation to try to take care of them to the best of our ability. Now, taking care of them doesn't mean that, you know, we got to set up tents in City Hall, but it does mean that we need to help manage the whole situation to the best, you know, as much as we can benefit the residents of Riverview. So, you know, that's what we've been trying to do. We've gathered every agency in the city and in the county, for that matter, to help, you know, aid these people. I've been very, very grateful to see the organizations from the continuum of care, everybody who's participated, they've all been involved, they've all stepped up and been working with and trying to help us help the citizens.
I know that this has to be just for all the residents that were displaced, for the family of those residents, for the city. This is just a tragic situation.
Absolutely, and you know, I don't think anybody like myself, or perhaps even you, that can imagine what it's like to wake up in the morning and not have a place to live by the afternoon. So, you know, that's got to be a very difficult situation, a very stressful one, and the demographics of the people who lived in that building, mostly elderly, many disabled, some who have mental problems, and you know, I mean, if I were them, I'd be freaking out, and many of them are. You know, they're not sure where they're going to live on a permanent basis, and so yeah, it's you know, it's a tragic, as I said, a humanitarian crisis that the city really, you know, some people think we shouldn't have any responsibility. Some of we got taxpayers say, no, it's not our problem, it's the building management's problem, and that's not the way we look at it. Yes, we've got some issues with the building management to deal with. However, it's the government's, in this particular instance and in others, it's the government's job to step in and help the citizens.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to do.
Have we seen any response from the government as far as assistance or programming that's going to assist?
Well, you know, MISHDA, I can't even tell you what MISHDA stands for, but they have stepped up with the vouchers, and they, you know, provided temporary housing for through those vouchers to pay for the hotel stays and all of that. We haven't gotten any grants. We've got some of our legislators, both in the state Senate and the state House, looking for appropriations that we could use, you know, to help set. But you know, we're starting to at least get some plans on what the long-term future, or an understanding what the long-term future is going to be. And that's something we're probably going to talk about here.
Yeah. And so if we have this very unique situation, and the city's doing the best that they can to respond and to assist residents, cooperating with different government agencies, talking with the management of the hotel, the management of the property itself,
yes,
to figure out what resources can be allocated to assist these residents that's displaced from their homes. And my understanding is that this displacement could be for years, if not permanent.
I believe so. Now, again, there's a mixed bag of opinions about that, but I've seen the damage, I've seen the structural reports, and the structural engineers say that the building might be able to be repaired, but they haven't offered any real solutions to how that would occur. My personal opinion is, well, not even my personal opinion, we know that if there are ways to repair the building, it's going to be a long-term endeavor. Anywhere, I think 18 to 24 months before that. Now, unfortunately, many of the residents are holding out hope that they're going to be able to move back into the building in a couple of months. And the reality is, and that's the word we're trying to get out to the community, and particularly those residents, is now this is going to be a long-term problem. Again, personally, I'd like to see what the recommended solutions are. That would fall to, the repairs would fall to the management company, the owners, and whatever insurance companies they've got dealing with it. Frankly, I'm not a construction expert, but from what I've seen, my concern is that the proposed solutions, when we get them, are going to be cost prohibitive, and the insurance company and the owners and management company are going to choose not to do it. Do not do those repairs. So I don't hold out a lot of hope that these, even if it can be repaired, as I said before, it's a long-term issue, and that's pretty much my view on the situation. And I don't know that there's anybody on the commission or in City Hall that is thinking any differently.
So, and you can correct me if my information and my sources are wrong, but my understanding is that the city has purchased the old Adrian Inn.
That's correct. We have. It was an $800,000 investment. Again, somewhat controversial. You hear pros and cons from many of our citizens. But it was something that was done. Some people say a knee-jerk reaction. I don't think it was a knee-jerk reaction. We had a crisis, and we needed to deal with it. We needed to find housing because the hotel vouchers were running out. So we needed to find a solution. We knew that we had the ability and to step back on the Adrian Inn. We had declared that facility, that hotel, as a public nuisance a couple of years ago because of the number of police visits out there, because they had a lot of overdoses, they had a lot of meth labs blowing up, things like that. So we had declared it a public nuisance and worked with the management there, the owners, to try to make some things to remedy it. Some changes were made by the hotel owner at the time, but over time, we continue to have the problems. So purchasing the hotel kind of solved two problems. It got it off the public nuisance list because now we don't have those problems. But more importantly, it really gave us an opportunity to find a solution to house the 70 or so people who didn't go to their families, didn't live with relatives or friends. So again, I'm not a big fan of having the government owning buildings and doing that kind of stuff. But again, it was something that needed to be done at the time. And the one problem or solution, I guess, that this offers is we have a terrible crisis also in affordable housing. Affordable housing is very difficult to find. And many of these, or most of these residents of Riverview Terrace, have to live in Section 8 housing. They have rent subsidized. On average, they were all paying around $600 a month in rent. Well, finding a place where they can rent for $600, most of the available housing is not Section 8 to begin with, so they aren't getting subsidized. And if you look, in the ads in the paper or on, the internet as to what apartments or houses or whatever, what living options there are, there's not a whole lot out there for anywhere near under 1,000. So, and they go up, from there. So that's a situation that's not very hopeful for the.
We're a little bit on the side. Oh, no.
That need to be made in that building. We're gonna do, actually this next couple of weeks, we're gonna be repairing the roof. The roof actually should be completely replaced, but there's some repairs that we can make to get us through the winter and then deal with that in the spring, depending on where we are a year from now.
Right. So that was gonna be one of my follow-up questions, because we know that affordable housing is a challenge in this community. Now we have 160 individuals and families that are displaced their housing. What does it look like here with having those rooms available? Is the Adrian Inn a temporary solution to a long-term problem, or are we looking to make renovations that's going to make that a permanent solution for those particular residents?
It won't be a permanent solution for those residents. In fact, one of the conditions of them living there is that they need to be actively pursuing long-term permanent places to live. Now, we've had organizations, Habitat's come in and some of the other continuing care, and even the management of the company, who've been trying to identify available housing. Again, it's difficult because you can't rent very many properties, but even the building management, they manage a number of different apartment buildings around the state. They were able actually to identify, I don't know, 6 or 8 empty apartments, but they're not here in the city. And what we're finding is many of the residents, this is where they grew up, this is where their families are, this is where their doctors are, this is where all their connections are. And they're not anxious to move outside the city. Now, we have had a few of them, probably 4 or 5, that have taken the management company's offer of putting them into one of their buildings where there were available apartments. But again, there's not that many apartments available in the building management's portfolio of buildings. But and then we've got the situation where some people just don't want to move. What we found also is we started with about 70 people that we had to accommodate, and that's all we've got room for at the Adrian Inn. But a number of the people who've gone to live with relatives, we're now finding coming back and saying, okay, well, my relatives are tired of me being in the house, so I need a place to stay, and we're trying to help them as well. But one of the difficult things is, we can communicate very easily with the people at the Adrian Inn. We have resident meetings, we have them come in, we tell them, give them a status report, whatever. The other 100 that are out there living, again, with families or friends, they're not hearing the same message that we're giving to, giving to the residents that are there, because they're easier to meet with. And in fact, just to illustrate that, we received, the mayor and all the commissioners received an email yesterday from a Navy captain who's currently stationed in Naples, Italy. But his mother is here. She's been living with some family members. His sister is taking care of him as best they can. But because she hasn't gotten the messaging, mom's 85 and thinks she's going to move back into Riverview Terrace in 3 months. And, he was asking about that. He says, can you tell me what's going on so that I can work with my sister and my mother to tell them? And I responded, I said, basically what I've said here today, if it can be repaired, it's a long-term thing, and your mother needs to find something else. If you're not going to have her living with relatives, she needs to find another thing. And I talked about the fact that affordable housing is very difficult, but maybe assisted living. There are rooms available in some of the assisted living facilities, and I said that may be the best solution. I know it's a little more expensive, but that might be the best thing, at least an option to start looking at. I responded as quickly as I could after getting that email yesterday. I got basically back with him within an hour or two, and he appreciated that. He said, now that I know what the lay of the land really is, now I can work with my family to make alternative arrangements. But I'm concerned about how many other people aren't getting that message.
Yeah. So that's the messaging that needs to go out into communities, that those that are hopefully waiting for Riverview Terrace to become a potential place for them to reside again, is the truth of the future is that it may not be.
That's right. And if it is, it's going to be a long time before that happens. Now, you know, in terms of what our vision is, I think for the Adrian Inn down the road, I think again there's a mixed opinion amongst the commissioners as what we should do and what we shouldn't do. Some want, you know, to deal with this situation when the problem goes away with regard to these residents. Let's get rid of the building, everything else. Others believe that, and I'm one of the others, believe that this affordable housing problem is not going to go away.
Right.
You know, in my opinion, we could build, or a developer could build a couple of high-rise apartment buildings, and they would fill immediately, and we would still have a transitional housing problem.
Right.
So, you know, my opinion is that we're going to have the Adrian Inn for quite a while, because we're always going to need this transitional housing. Our hope is that some of the community agencies that works will partner with us, and in a good and perfect world, they would be able to invest and really take over the management of the hotel. And for, I mean, if they wanted to buy it and manage it, it would be perfect, but I don't anticipate that that's going to be happening. But regardless, we're looking for people, you know, organizations, charities, whomever, the nonprofits, to partner with us to approach, you know, to address the situation. But again, transitional housing is going to be a need for a long, long time, not just here in Adrian, across the nation. Yeah. And you know, right now the Adrian Inn is it's a temporary solution for hopefully a temporary problem, but I don't think, you know, the issue of the need for transitional housing is going to be there forever, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, because I'm just looking at just the different moving pieces of the situation, because you got folks that were staying at Riverview that were on SSI, some that were receiving vouchers from the state through Section 8.
Yep.
That were staying there, and I often wonder, is that going to potentially pose a problem for them if they're not able to find permanent housing within a certain period of time? Will that jeopardize their Section 8 vouchers in the future? And then what does housing look like for them? And the ones that are seniors that have become accustomed to living independently, and now they're residing with family, but they still want their independence.
And that's a difficult situation. And in all honesty, some of the elderly residents probably should be in assisted living of some way, shape, or form. But that's not something we can force on them, or any of the agencies can force on them. They've got to want to do that. Now, but I think there are people that living by themselves as much as they want to pose it's a difficult issue for them. But nobody really, I rarely hear about somebody who's just saying, oh yeah, I want to leave my home and go into assisted living. Usually you find the people, they want to stay where they are. Yeah. And so we're hearing a lot of that. But again, that's the situation.
Wow. So I know this question keeps coming up, is who's responsible? And I know that a lot of that, because the city commission and city government is so easily accessible, that it's visible, that folks are oftentimes shifting that weight over to the city government. That's my assumption with it, and I don't know if that's a fair assumption. But how do you respond to that when folks are looking at the city saying you guys are responsible for what's going on, and who did the investigation to make sure that the structure was sound before it became a residential option? What's the city's response to that?
Well, a couple of things, and again, as I said, it's somewhat controversial. There's a lot of people asking about, you know, who was inspecting this thing, and, you know, why did it take so long to notice that there was a problem? You know, the city, in this particular case, we inspect rentals all the time, but in this particular building, because Mishta holds the mortgage, and they're responsible for doing the inspections, and they have been doing them on an annual basis. Unfortunately, I think they subcontract, we have inspectors on the city payroll, and I think they do a pretty good job. And I don't want to be critical of Mishta because they have been a big assistance in this, but looking back at the inspections that have been done, there's inconsistency in terms of they don't send the same inspector every year, so the one that's did it last year may not know what was found the year before. And so we've seen the inspection reports from last year. Frankly, I think they missed some stuff. But again, these structural defects, they didn't happen overnight.
Right.
So that's something I think that should have been discovered before it got to this point. I'm not sure that had they been discovered, we may have evacuated that building earlier.
Right.
But when they were, I think we took the appropriate action. But in the end, the building owner and the building management are responsible for not having taken care of the problem. Some people are very critical of the fact that it hasn't been maintained for a number of years, because like I said, this didn't happen overnight. So there should have been some knowledge of the problems in the building, and they should have been taken care of on an ongoing basis. They weren't, so here we are. But yeah, the city was not responsible for the inspections. The responsibility, is with the building management, the building owners, and Mishta to do the inspections. And as I said, Mishta holds the mortgage. One of the concerns, and nobody wants to talk about it, but I'll talk about it, is that if the repairs to the building are cost prohibitive, the loan that the building owners have with Mishta is a non-recourse loan. So they could easily declare bankruptcy and just walk away.
Wow.
And leave Mishta holding the bag with the mortgage, and leave us with a big empty building here in the city that's beyond repair, or again, cost prohibitive. And then we're gonna have another empty building that at some point is gonna have to be demolished. The other thing I would like to address, if it's okay, we get a lot of people asking, the question is, well, why don't you use the old Bixby Hospital, or the old Charles Stevenson home, whatever, to put these people? And the fact of the matter is, first of all, city doesn't own the Bixby Hospital, ProMedica does, but they had to build a new hospital because of the problems with the building at the Bixby buildings. They've had a problem there for a long time, flooding in the basement, a lot of black mold, asbestos, things like that. So they've made the decision that building's going to be torn down as well. And all, say, well, there's beds, no, there's no beds. Everything's been pulled out of that building. It's a big empty shell, and it's not inhabitable. So that's not a good solution. But every day, I see posts on social media saying, well, just use Bixby Hospital. Yeah. Not an option.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to walk through Bixby Hospital when they were in the transition of moving to the new facility, and it looks like something out of a horror show. Yeah. I often think of Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger every time I walk through that facility. Yep. I think if people had the opportunity to see the condition that it's in, then they would probably abandon that notion as well. Is there anything else that you would like to add that people should know?
No, I think we've covered all the situation or the updates that I've gotten. I think the real thing that we need to stress is, and we've talked about it a couple of times, is this is not going to, whatever the solution is, it's not going to happen quickly. We really need people to take on some personal responsibility to find their alternative housing options and do that. Arguably, the building management does have some responsibility to those tenants, but I don't think their responsibility extends now to, trying to house them. Some people say, well, they ought to give them back their rent for the last 2 years or things like that. That's not going to happen, and that's not reasonable. But so the real message is, it's going to take time. if the building can be repaired, people need to look for their other alternative options.
And so we know that the Housing Health, the SEER program, we know has finished, but Housing Health may still have some funding to help residents.
That's true.
And so, are there any other resources that's out there that can assist?
Well, we think there's state grants available, and as I mentioned, we know that we've got a state senator and a state representative who are working to find other grants and special appropriations from the legislature. So we're hopeful that we're not looking at it from the city needs this money, but we know that the residents are going to need some kind of support over the long term. So that's where we're hoping that the nonprofits and those who are involved, again, the continuum of care, that they're able to access grant money, quite frankly, probably easier than the city can. So we're hoping that some of those funds can become available.
I definitely appreciate you, Commissioner McGowan, taking the time out of your schedule to come and meet with us today and be on the show. So I definitely appreciate it.
Happy to do it. And, anytime on this topic or anything else that's going on in the city, please feel free to give me a call, and I'll be more than happy to sit down and talk to you again. Like I said, either on this issue as things progress and we have updates, or on any other subject in terms of what's going on in the city.
I definitely appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll be calling you back to talk more about the development of Riverview Terrace and what things are transpiring as we continue to move forward with this situation. But just the information that you provided for us today, that we can get that messaging out to residents and to community, I think is really important. And I think we need to hear to know this is the reality of what we're facing.
Right. It's not happy news by any stretch of imagination, but it's a story that the people need to hear. So from that standpoint, I really appreciate you inviting me in to talk about this to help get that message out.
I really appreciate it. And this is One Voice Lenawee. We thank you all for joining in today and being a part of the show. Again, if you have not hit that subscribe button, take this time right now to click on that subscribe button. It's right there. You can do it. My parents always told me, don't put off for tomorrow what you can do today. So hit that button today and become a member of our audience. The show is sponsored by United Way of Monroe and Lenawee County. And we invite you to join us again on the next air, which we air every second and fourth Monday at 6 p.m. right here live on YouTube. You can also join us on Facebook. We do have our Facebook page. Look for One Voice Lenawee and join our audience there, and stay tuned to the things that we have coming up and information that's developing. Again, thank you again for joining us. Thank you again, Commissioner Goss, for being with us. And we will see you next time. Thank you.